Josh.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, where's Josh? He left side.
So people who are new to Blood in the Snow, we have a little kind of alumni thing. You know how like you get the master's jacket, the green jacket for golf. We have the Bloodies button for filmmakers that play Blood in the Snow. So wear that with pride. So first question for you, Andrew. How do you direct yourself?
It's difficult. When I direct other actors, I think it's easier for them to be in the moment. When I'm doing a performance, all my beats, everything is blocked out ahead of time. So I've almost directed myself beforehand. It's not as if I'm sitting in the washroom, like just running lines to myself and saying, oh, that was bad, or tweak this. But most of the beats, I line the script, I go through the beats, and I pretty much have a firm idea of what I have to do because I'm also focused on the shot list and stuff like that. So my performance is the last thing I want to worry about. The other key thing is that I actually trust my director of photography, Joshua Freeman, with my performance. So, when we started out, Joshua was first my focus puller, and then graduated to my camera operator, and then graduated to now my director of photography. And to have someone that you trust like that, like he'll say, Andrew, I think we need another one. Do this, and being able to go to someone who knows what I'm going for always helps. And then also with working, specifically in this film, because so many of the scenes I shared with my wife, she's always brutally honest with me. So she can say, try this, try that. So I have a good team.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask too, is about the working dynamic. We have a husband and wife team. Brigitte is the producer, Andrew is the writer-director, and of course they're both stars together. You obviously worked together. If you guys know their previous work, Medium Raw and the Summer Vale series, they work together quite often. So do you want to talk about working with this guy?
No, actually, it's actually really amazing working with Andrew, because the lucky thing for us is that we work on completely different sides of the industry. So he's all creative, I'm all business, and so although we bounce ideas off each other and we trust each other, at the end of the day, if he's like, creatively, Burge, this is where we're going, I'm like, cool, and he trusts me on the business side as well. So, and then on set we just kind of play, we just have fun because we get to play dress up and do fun things. So it's a really good atmosphere for the most part.
Yeah, I would just add that it is very much because she's the producer and the money, and really I'll say I have this crazy idea, and she'll say, okay, well, we can't afford that. So as long as I just say, yeah, you're right, and come up with something different, I think it works really great. And like she said, it's really, since we started acting together, I mean, I haven't gone out for Halloween because I feel like that's my dress up here, right?
And to my defense, we totally had a bus in our yard for a year because he wanted a bus absolutely in that opening scene. So I think there's a lot of compromise on the producing side.
Yes, there is.
But actually, I don't see much compromise on screen because it's a very ambitious film. I mean, I think this is probably, from the sheer scope of it, I mean, this is one of the most ambitious films that we've ever received for Blood in the Snow. I mean, you actually have digital characters in this interacting. Like, I mean, you expect this with Gollum and Lord of the Rings, and you guys got this in an independent Canadian film. So, I mean, the other thing, I mean, this film obviously isn't a horror film. I mean, for Blood in the Snow, we do try and program films that kind of fit into that kind of dark genre. It's very much a dark drama, but you're kind of touching in on a lot of different areas. You got some action in it, some of it's sexy, obviously they're a romantic film, and so it has touching on all these different elements. Where I guess what gave you the confidence to do such a big film?
Confidence?
Loaded question.
The funny thing is, I was explaining, I don't know how I can answer that, really.
You know, it came down to the team. Honestly, like, a lot of the days, there was 5 of us on set shooting this thing, so it really came down to, we had a handful of really amazing people, a lot of them standing up here today, and they gave us their time, their energy. I mean, there was days where we drove in the middle of winter to Mattawa on a weekend in a snowstorm. Everybody was such a trooper. They got in the car, drove up there, and we shot in like ridiculously cold weather. You could see our breaths in most of that, and you know, the girls were scantily clad and it's freezing. But everybody gave their time, their energy, and I think that's really, and their talent, and that's how we got away with it, because the budget was extremely low. It really came down to, yeah.
I was working with Josh on Dark Rising Warrior Worlds, and I said to him, I was like, we could do better. Just you and me. And I said it would be very hard. It would be a very hard shoot, but if we took our time with it and was happy with each day, then you know, we'd come up with something that we would be confident that we'd be happy with. So I asked Josh after we finished if it was right, and he said yes, it was very hard to do. But I think he was happy with it as well. So.
Well, let him speak here.
Fire away.
What do you want to know?
Well, tell them
how easy it was.
how many people we generally had on set.
Usually on set, probably about 4, 5 on a good day. I think the fight scene, the biggest our crew got was probably in the 20s.
Yeah.
Most days, just because it was so run and gun, it was like, hey, we have this prop or this location, we managed to get it, but it's only for this weekend. So we'd pack up, it was me, sound, you 2 guys, and we would just, yeah.
A lot of the scenes in the barn, I remember because Josh has got the camera, he told me it, and this is going to get a little techie, but we bought a handheld rig that Josh could actually pull his own focus with his hand, just to minimize the crew members. So he's there pulling his own focus. The barn set we shot in Mattawa, and it was actually -20 when we were shooting. So I'm shirtless, she's not wearing pants.
I was in a parka, I was fine.
And so the shot where we're trying to have an emotional sequence, I'm actually covered in blankets from the bottom down. And he's like, Andrew, can you switch the light? And I'm switching the light. So it was really, for a lot of the days, it was that limited. But then that also allowed us the bigger days, like the fight scenes and that, where we were able to put the budget there.
And why don't you introduce your 2 actors here?
This is Brandy, and she played the lovely one of the girls in the harem, and Nug, who played.
Yeah, for a hot second, I got my head blown out. That's actually the most fun. Like there's like Collins in this, and Christian Brune from Orphan Black, and our friend Michelle, who's now on Young and the Restless. All these people that we've all worked with them before, and I love when they call you up and go, "Hey, you want to come get your head blown off?" And we're all like, "Yeah, that sounds awesome." The best for me was that I got to come up and shoot my scene, and I died, and then months later they're like, "We have to reshoot your scene," and I was like, "Did I screw up?" And they went, "No." Okay, great. So I came up, and that was the -20 day. You know, a lot of fun rolling around in the grass with that. But yeah, that, and like we were saying, that day there was like maybe 6 of us on set. It was crazy.
I feel like all of them were -20 days,
Yeah,
and it was
probably,
actually
yeah.
colder on set.
It was-
I had this giant tiger onesie that I would wear in between shots.
Which was awesome, by the way.
That milk was actual milk, and it got very cold very fast. They did heat it up for us, but
Also,
that just made it freeze fast.
you may have noticed there was a common element of fire in a lot of the rooms. That wasn't originally the case.
Just to stay warm.
And also the fur coats, that was actually later put on, like how are we going to keep our actors warm.
No, it was how are we going to keep Colin warm?
Yes.
We weren't after that.
That scene where I'm cuddling up to Bridge, yeah, that was practical.
It was a necessity.
Pure warmth.
Let's open up to some questions. Back.
Hi, just want to say, I ordinarily hate dolls, and I love Caitlin. Was she always going to be like a little golem thing? How did that come about?
Well, when you start a movie, you have a vision in your head in terms of like what it's going to be, and we actually had a puppet on set, and it just wasn't working. It wasn't giving me the personality that it needed. We were looking at a puppet whose mouth was basically moving up and down. So Night Cries would have probably been finished a year earlier if it wasn't for Caitlin.
Wow.
So we have a love-hate relationship with that doll. But Aislinn Paul did a great
You
job.
did cringe when I mentioned the digital character. I was wondering.
Yeah, it's just specifically, just because, like I said, as a filmmaker, you come in with a specific idea, and when it doesn't work, and you have to fix it, and still be true to what you know. Caitlin is such an important story, and it's such an important element of the movie. She's a doll. She symbolizes, you know, that we're all shells, and it's like this hollow being that is a spark plug, and in fact, we could all be dolls, and in fact, everyone that's on screen is a doll for me, who's playing with, you know, with all these different characters, right? And they're just as real as anything else. So yeah, I mean, with Caitlin, it was always supposed to be that spunky, kind of creepy. For example, one of the first drafts of the script, when Brigitte, you know, pushes the curtain away and sees them, she's actually supposed to be on my back stitching up an open wound. When we got the puppet onto set, very quickly we realized that was not gonna happen. so, you know, that's, I guess. Anything else?
Back there?
Yeah, I thought Colin was great as the Hat. Can you talk about, first of all, how he came aboard, but also, like, is he your first choice for an actor?
We met Colin on Warrior Worlds, which was another project that we did. We always wanted to work with him, so an opportunity came up where I got to roast him at his own roast. I had never done stand-up comedy, and I was like, I'm going to do this to meet him because I want him to be on a project. And so I did, and he came on board Warrior Worlds. And then when Andrew was writing The Hat, yeah, Colin was definitely one of the first choices, and Andrew always writes him as a bad guy for some reason. I don't know, so it's just fun.
Also, I actually think that people who have very good improv skills and a good sense of humor, they're great actors, and sometimes they get typecast as you know, just the funny guy. But I mean, you know, Nug, Christian, and Colin, they all excel at improvising. Being funny, but they can also really act, and I found that that's the case definitely with Colin. A lot of the nuances, the subtleties of his performance, yeah.
Did he, obviously he's a master of improv, did he improv much of this, or was it pretty much stick to script?
My only story of Colin was that he's eating that steak, and I told him that he doesn't need to eat the entire steak. And he just kept eating it all day. And at the end, it was cold, and he had a little bit of the meat sweat. And I was like, Colin, you don't need to do it. And the hard thing is when I'm acting opposite him, I'm trying to be intimidated, and at the same time watch the little nuances that he's giving. But the thing with Colin is that he'll test the waters, he'll see how much of a leeway he has on doing it. So in terms of the lines, I wouldn't say he improv, but a lot of the moments he did. You know, a lot of the looks to Brigitte and that kind of thing.
Anyone else?
Hey, screenplay like this has a lot of clicking, moving parts. How do you, when you're setting out to write this, stop yourself from getting lost and kind of get your head up your own ass, so to speak? How do you keep this sort of storyline?
Like in prep or in post? Because
prep. Well, you also edited it too.
Yeah. So I mean, the initial cut was 2 hours and 35 minutes, right? And that was already edited down, and it was like, well, we're not going to have that long a movie. You kind of set with something like this. There's a lot of projects that are the simple beginning, middle, end projects, like the safe projects, so to speak, where the prep on that is a little simpler. But in something like this, I would give the actors the scene as it would play out as a scene instead of the pieces, so they wouldn't know how it would be cutting back and forth between them.
so that they could prepare for that specific scene. So while we're shooting it, we're shooting scenes, and in my head, I'm editing it later. And it's really just, I don't know, it's a lot of prep work, but it's also a fluid situation, because with low budget independent movies, everything changes when you get to set. So you have to be able to, roll with it, so to speak.
But also in terms of the writing and the I mean, something like this, I mean, you've established rules, like your universe. Where does this come from? When do you set up the rules of your universe, and what is it?
The rules of the, I was talking to Rashid about that yesterday, and I was like, if someone asks me that, how am I going to explain it?
I'm a plan, you got it.
Yeah.
I'll let you think about it. I'm missing one thing.
Yeah, okay.
So Andrew knows absolutely every character inside and out. There's a storyline for the Valley of the Dolls, where Caitlin comes from. There's an entire storyline about the hat and how he got his name, and it's not because he wears hats. He knows every single character inside and out, and so when he's writing the world, I think the world is already fully fleshed out, and then he just pulls the pieces.
Yeah, you told me I had a whole thing going on. And I was like, why?
But is that because is that because you're being actors too? Because I know with actors, when I've worked with actors on my films, the first thing they question when I give them the script, they're like, the first question is they want their backstory. So is that something that comes from your acting background, wanting to give that, or is that just
Specifically on this project, it was different because what I was trying to show or explore was this concept of what happens to our construct after we die. So it's the idea of, well, like let's put it this way. When you're born, you are either somebody's plot twist or someone's, the main storyline, right? But the story is already there and it's in full motion, right? So I kind of wanted to play with that and this idea of the Caitlin construct. I mean, a lot of people would say, okay, well, this is about lost souls in some kind of limbo, but it could also be just a thought process. There have been times where I've been creating projects and I'll wake up mid-dream and sketch out the entire wolf costume that was in medium raw. And it just was perfect. And it's exactly how it turned out, it worked. I don't know where that came from. So was it something that, was it a construct that I then gave life to?
or was it already there?
Yeah, was it in wherever it is that it is, right? So it sounds crazy, but.
We're getting deep in this.
So, I don't know how to really answer that question, but thanks for it.
All right,
It's 2015.
I think we have time for one more question.
No.
I'm just curious because you bring it up at the end of the movie, but this idea that this is the afterlife in a sense, but people are getting killed. So where do they go?
He knows where.
You have to watch the next movie because there's an entire movie that explains that.
All right, on that note, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. All right, and we're going to have our opening night party now at the Marquita Granby Pub, 412 Church Street, 418, Church Street. Just straight around the corner, you can follow us. Just walk around the corner here, and you guys be able to make it out to the party?
Sure.
All right, so you guys can chat it up and talk about existential stuff and the meaning of life and all that over a beer. And we'll be over there. And of course, the festival continues on all weekend. As you saw the trailer, Dark Stranger is at 4 p.m. tomorrow. We still have tickets for that. A lot of the screens tomorrow night are sold out, but we do have rush tickets.